here you go. Flight characteristics section of your -1. Okay. Most of your prohibited maneuvers are based on spins. Okay? What can I not do? I can't do an inverted spin. Aggravated spin special 2 turns. We're going to talk about how these occur and what they are. Spins with PCL above idle. Spins with landing gear flaps or speed brake center. In other words, you've got a kind of a landing configuration. PMU off spins. Spins below 10 or above 22. Aerobatic maneuvers, spins, or stalls with fuel imbalance greater than 50 pounds. So all of those include spins. That's almost your whole list of prohibited maneuvers, right? So, here we see a T6 spin.
Left rudder.
Notice how the nose went above the horizon
that
on
was
the
good.
first turn? And then it stabilizes nose low. And you will see just before he pops out, it'll accelerate. The spin rotation will accelerate just before he pops out.
How much are they doing?
I think that was the 4th turn. And it's obviously on Pensacola.
Yep. Fun place to go for.
Okay? Look like fun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Injections.
I hated spins in the tweet when I was a student. I love spins in the T3. And it's just like, once you get used to doing them and everything, it's different. So, you must have 2 things to spin an aircraft. You must be stalled and you must introduce yaw of some sort. If you get rid of either one of those in the equation, you will not spin. Okay? You might go into a steep spiral, but you're not going to be spinning. So, auto rotation is a technical term for a spin. So, an asymmetric stall. You have to introduce yaw while in the stall. So what's happening here is what it says there. Both wings are stalled, but at different angles of attack. Okay, so we're going to go kind of take a look at this. Okay, so pull up into a stall. We're going to go left. Pull up in the stall, introduce left rudder. So what happens? The airplane starts yawing. So this wing is going faster than this wing, which means it's producing more lift even though it's stalled. It's closer to CL max than the inside wing. So the inside wing actually has a higher angle of attack, so it's producing less lift and higher drag. Okay? So the upgoing forward moving wing has more lift and less drag. So it's going to roll towards the less lift, and it's going to pull back towards the high drag. So that's what introduces the auto rotation, because the difference between lift and drag between the upgoing and downgoing wing. Okay, that creates auto rotation. Lift and drag difference between the wings causing the aircraft to roll and yaw. Okay, so here's a diagram where all we're doing is stalling. Okay, my coefficient of drag goes up. I reach my coefficient of lift, go a little bit past CL max, I'm stalled. But both wings are stalled equally. So the nose just tends to drop over. Okay? So the yaw changes the direction of the relative wind, causing the left and right wings to see different angles of attack. So we're seeing here in the left spin, the AO on the left wing is increased, right wing is decreased. Now this is hard to actually interpret. I hate the fact that, you can't do 3D on paper. And that's what you really have to visualize here is a 3D event based on this relative wind change, okay? So the downgoing wing has a relative wind that is much steeper to the chord than the upgoing wing, okay? So this is what we see. Right wing versus left wing. The left wing is more deeply into the stall, so its coefficient of lift is dropping off and its drag is increasing. right wing is gonna go up and forward because of less drag. The left wing is gonna drop down and pull back because of the increased drag. So, the aircraft will progress through 3 stages: a post-stall gyration, the incipient spin, and steady state spin. Okay? In your book, it describes all 3 of these. Okay? We do not do spin recoveries. We do OCF recoveries. Okay? So OCF is a situation where the aircraft does not respond immediately and in a normal sense to application of life force. So that may be starting to go into a spin, whatever. Things aren't working. Okay? So it says OCF is the seemingly random motion of the aircraft about 1 or more axes, usually resulting from a stalled condition. Inertial forces on the aircraft exceeded the authority of the ailerons, elevator, and rudder. I don't have control of the aircraft anymore. It's just doing what it wants to do. So, post-stall gyration, incipient spin, and steady state spins. Post-stall gyration, uncommanded motion in any one or more of these axes. Controls no longer feel effective. And it says the intensity of gyration is most affected by airspeed at the time of stall. Okay? Higher energy, higher gyrations. Okay? So if the stall is at a higher speed, you get stronger gyrations. Okay? Incipient spin is a spin of like motion, but is still characterized by oscillations in pitch, roll, and yaw. Okay? Steady state, pitch attitude, roll rate, and yaw rate will be nearly constant. Okay? And it says here, so it will stabilize to approximately 2 to 3 seconds per turn. Attitude or altitude 400 to 500 feet per turn with about 11,000 foot per minute rate of descent. That's going down pretty fast. Okay? It says angle of attack will be showing 18 or greater units. Right? It's only going to show 18 in your cockpit. So you will be showing an 18 AOA. Airspeed will be stable between 120 and 135. Okay? So this is different than a steep spiral. Okay? They may look similar, but in the steep spiral, you do not have a stalled AOA, and airspeed would be increasing. Right? So it says typical loss from initial entry to steady state spin is approximately 4,500 feet for a 6-turn spin. And that would include your 1,500 to 2,000 foot recovery. That's a lot of altitude loss, right? So, here we go. Stall and yaw, full aft stick and rudder. First turn post-stall gyration, looks like a barrel roll. So this is, basically it's spinning in the horizontal direction, okay? So it looks very much like the nose is actually kind of spinning, but it's still going above and below the horizon. Okay? Second turn, incipient spin, losing horizontal momentum. So we're starting to arc down. Third turn, incipient spin, all horizontal moment is lost, you're going down. And then steady state, after 3 turns, pitch, roll, yaw, and everything is stabilized. So there's a kind of horizontal, now it's going more vertical, and then it's all vertical. Again, if you watch the recovery, just prior to recovery, the rotation rate actually increases. This is what killed the guys at the academy. Okay. So what happened at the academy on the first spin accident is, this is what they determined at the accident board, was they got into the spin, which was intentional. And then during the recovery, we actually had to do full spin recoveries in that airplane, very much like the tweak. You couldn't do an OCF or else you just wrap up, okay? So we put in his opposite rudder, started moving the stick forward, rotation rate increased. Pulled it back, slow the rotation. Kept doing that all the way down to the ground, instead of just pushing through the increased rotation and letting it recover. Okay? So, different types of spin. We've got erect, inverted, and flat. So erect means canopy is towards the sky, inverted means canopy is towards the ground, flat spin means it's rotating with the nose pretty high. Anytime you enter the spin with positive G's at the stall, you will wind up in an erect spin. Okay? Even if it starts out here. If I'm pulling like this and I stall and spin, it will wind up spinning with canopy towards the sky. Okay? So, training, you will do this with full half stick and full rudder around 80 knots. Just as you're stalling out, you'll get full stick and throw in full rudder one way or the other. Okay? So, attitude or bank angle has no effect whether the spin becomes erect or inverted. It's only what kind of G's you have on the aircraft when you introduce it to the spin. Positive G's, erect spin. Okay? So, it rolls inverted momentarily, but it winds up spinning erect. Okay? Okay. Inverted spin. This looks like a lot of fun, right? So anytime you enter the spin with negative G's, it will wind up spinning upside down. You'll be negative G's hanging in the straps in the cockpit. Okay?
Is the recovery procedure the same?
Yep.
We actually practice these.
Not inverted.
There's your inverted spin. Looks like a lot of fun, huh? So first of all, it's kind of difficult to get into in this airplane. In the tweet, it happened relatively often during spin recoveries. And the reason it happened is because the full single spin recovery was a 5-step bow face in the tweet, same as the T3. And basically, the first thing you do is idle aft. Okay? You do that to slow the rotation up. Okay? Then you apply a rudder opposite the spin direction, opposite the turn needle. Sometimes you get confused on spin direction, so you go to the turn needle. You wait until the rotation slows, stick full forward, recover from the dive. Well, in the tweet, if the student went stick full forward and didn't relax, and held it full forward, you go from an erect spin to an inverted spin. What? No, you will not do this in your in the sim either.
Not at all.
No, you will not practice inverted spins.
Do fighter aircraft do it, or?
You do not ever intentionally do inverted spins unless you're a test pilot. Okay? You notice that video said T6 test pilot. Okay. So it says the T6 is resistant to inverted spins in the idle power. More prone to spin inverted with high power settings. So, as an example, T6 will enter an inverted spin if controls are released with a pitch attitude of 60 to 90 degrees airspeed of 50 knots and power at max. Okay? High engine torque is the primary impetus which drives the aircraft into and sustains the inverted spin. Now, we're not supposed to do spins above idle, right? So this really shouldn't happen to you, right? So, by reducing power to idle during the first 2 spin turns, the pilot can expect the spin to terminate even without using recovery controls. So the inverted spin actually pretty easy to get out of. Okay? Inverted spins and spins of PCL above idle are both prohibited in the T6. We don't practice them in the sim. They are prohibited maneuvers, okay? And entering a spin with PCL above idle, you automatically assume engine damage. If you fail to do an OCF recovery quick enough that you actually go into gyrations with the BCL above idle, after the recovery, you're gonna be doing a HAPL somewhere. Okay? So, flat spin. This is a spin in which the nose is well up and you may not actually have enough forward stick capability to actually break it out of the spin. T6 will not enter a flat spin. This is a T38 flat spin. So a lot of times a flat spin, the only way they could ever get the airplanes out of a flat spin is with a drogue chute. So like when they spin test airplanes, they normally have a drogue chute on the tail.
This is how Goose died.
Huh?
Goose died in a flat spin.
I don't know what happened with this one.
Well, he was in an F-14. Out to sea.
Here's the F-14.
There is.
Now where is it rotating around, can you tell? Back here in the tail, it's actually rotating around the tail, and some airplanes can actually spin on a rotation axis outside the airframe.
To begin recovery.
Ours spins right through the cockpit.
He tries. The plane won't stabilize.
You gotta think about what the airflow here is with the airplane spinning basically around the tail section. He's not getting much elevator control or
You
anything.
said only that drove shoot.
15,000 feet. The pilot makes an agonizing decision. He ejects, losing a $50 million airplane, but saving his life.
He said only when the drove shoot would they get out of that.
If he had had a drogue chute, there might have been a possibility we get out. It depends on whether the drogue chute would deploy in a way that it actually would pull that tail up. But that's what they do in test flights because they don't know how the airplane's gonna react in the spin when they first test it.
Were they telling him to increase the power to recover from the?
Probably.
And you gotta get forward.
You try all kinds of different things when you get into a situation like that. You just try different things to see if you can actually get it out. Pro aileron, anti-aileron,
Unless he had compressor stalls.
just trying to find something that's actually gonna work to get it out of something like that. Okay. So we generally have to break out of the stall and stop the yaw, right? So to break the stall, you need the decreased angle attack. Generally means forward stick, right? We have a situation, everybody, the physics conservation angle, they use the example of the ice skater here. So, as you bring the rotating mass closer to the center of gravity, the rotation rate goes up. So in your airplane, when you're spinning, anything that moves your CG closer to the point of rotation will increase the spin rate. So that means for us, anytime the nose goes down, the rotation rate is going to increase. Right?
She's made of rubber.
On ice.
That's what we see here.
On ice.
So in the normal spin situation, we've got the CG that is fairly well separated from the rotation point. We lower the nose, the CG comes close to the rotation point, and the rotation rate increases. Okay. So ailerons are not very effective. They will cause wobble. Elevator is effective and rudder is the most effective. Because we're stalled, right? Rudder is the one that stays effective the longest. So if I hold ailerons in this airplane, not every airplane, but in this airplane, you hold ailerons in the same direction as the rotation, you get increased wobble. Okay? Held in the opposite direction, I don't know if this is a video, no, it's not. So, Aileron's opposite direction of the spin, and it dampens, okay? We don't normally use ailerons as part of our spin recovery, right? So, horizontal and vertical controls operate differently in the spin. So, my rudder has both a horizontal drag component and a vertical drag component. So if I put my rudder in the direction of spin, I'm decreasing drag, right? So what would initially happen is my nose would go up, because it's not pulling the tail up, right? So my nose would flatten out. But then because of the reduced horizontal drag, my rotation rate goes up. If I put in anti-spin rudder, I increase the drag. So initially, my tail pulls up, my nose goes down, which increases the rotation rate slightly, but then the horizontal effect of the drag takes over and slows the rotation rate. My vertical, or my horizontal stabilizer, my pitch control, if I pull the elevator back, right, I go up, and I reduce the drag. Okay, so that means my tail is not pulling up, it's gonna be flattening out. Or slow the rotation rate, okay? That's why in the single spin recovery, it was idle aft. Slowed the rotation rate, okay? I put the stick forward and cause a lot of vertical drag, pulls the nose down, increases the rotation rate. Okay? Okay, so unaccelerated spin is a direct spin with a stick full aft. It's your slowest rotation rate. Okay? Forward stick lowers the pitch and increases the rotation rate, so that's an accelerated spin. Okay, and we already talked about this. So, anti-spin rudder lowers the pitch and decreases rotation rate due to more drag. See? So it lowers the pitch due to the vertical component, but slows the rotation due to the horizontal component. Pro spin rudder raises pitch and increases rotation rate because of the lack of horizontal drag. Now, if I go into a spin and I actually use opposite rudder for an actual spin recovery, I'm holding the stick aft, I put opposite rudder in, and it stops the rotation, but I forget to release the stick, then it will progress from spinning in one direction to spinning in the opposite direction. That's a progressive spin. Okay? Aggravated, how'd you like that rotation rate? Pro spin rudder and stick forward. Okay? Nose goes way down, rotation rate goes way up. Okay? So that's an aggravated. Accelerated is elevator only, aggravated is elevator and rudder. So the rotation rate goes way up. And it says aggravated spins past 2 turns are prohibited. Doesn't mess up your engine. So we talked about this, a rolling and going motion of the aircraft is often mistaken for a spin. But it is not steady state in that airspeed is increasing through 160 knots. Motions are oscillatory, and again, notice if you look at your AOA, you will not be stalled. So, spiral can result from insufficient rudder or aft stick during an intentional spin interval. We still do the same thing for either one in this aircraft. We do the OCF recovery. All right? Gyroscopic effect in the spin. Basically what this is if I'm spinning left, I'll spin flatter and slower because the gyroscopic effect is pulling my nose up. If I'm spinning right, it's gonna tend to put the nose down, I'll spin more nose down and at a faster rate. Okay? So we've got ways to recover. We've got the hands-free, the -1 spin recovery procedure, which is actually the full spin recovery, and the OCF boldface. OCF is the only one you're going to do. So, -1 says the aircraft should recover from a direct spin with controls free, let go, TCL idle, however the number of additional doors may increase significantly. I don't know if we have videos for these or not. So, depending on where the CG is at, how deep the aircraft is in the spin, several turns may be required to recover. Not recommended. I actually had a student in the T-41 one time, an international student, that got into a spin in the T-41, couldn't figure out how to get himself out, decided he wasn't gonna die in the air. I'll say, reaches over to open the door, aircraft recovers. Let go of the yoke and everything, aircraft recovers. -1 procedure. This is actually the full spin recovery. So gear flaps and speed brake must be retracted. TCL idle. Rudder full opposite the turn needle deflection. Control stick forward of neutral with ailerons neutral. Smoothly recover from the dive. Okay? Inverted spin procedure is similar, except step 4, stick should be aft instead of forward. Makes sense? Hold the nose down, right? We don't use this normally in training. Now, I have heard recently, I've heard of a couple of cases where guys actually did this because the OCF wasn't working. I don't know why it wouldn't work, but evidently something happened and the OCF wasn't breaking them out quick enough, so that the IP actually did the spin recovery procedure. OCF. What's the bow face? Yeah, idle, neutral, check the altitude. Now, what students tend to forget is that altitude is checked as soon as you go idle, neutral. Check your current altitude. And then you're gonna wanna check it again as you're recovering to make sure you're actually recovering before dropping through 6,000 feet AGL. If you're not recovering by 6,000 feet, you're expected to get out of the airplane. So, idle, controls, altitude check. This is what you're going to do in the airplane for your spin recoveries. This is also what you should do if you're out solo and you get yourself into a bad aerobatic maneuver and you're out of airspeed and ideas, do the OCF recovery. Right? So, spiral. -1 procedure could aggravate the situation. OCF, it will recover. Hoist-stall gyrations. -1 procedure could aggravate the procedure. OCF, it will recover. Steady state spin. Recommended by -1. OCF will work with a slightly slower recovery time. Okay? Inverted spin requires more aft stick position. OCF still works. Decision process. I actually have to pay attention to my turn needle for the spin recovery to make sure I'm actually applying opposite rudder. And OCF, all I gotta do is idle neutral. Wrong rudder input. Okay, risk of accidental pro-spin rudder, which means gonna put me probably in an aggravated spin. And OCF, little chance of it. So we do OCF recoveries in this airplane. Other airplanes, you not necessarily can do that. Tweet, you couldn't do that. It just wrap up tight. T3, it would just wrap up tight. So you actually had to do a full spin recovery in those airplanes. T38, very hard to get it to spin. So, OCF covers the wide variety of situation and is more foolproof. This is not totally idiot-proof, but generally it works every time.
No rewrite for the dash one?
No, rewrite the dash one's been the same ever since the airplane came out.
That's interesting.
The spin recovery procedure is to use opposite rudder. It will pop out quicker if done correctly. It will come out of the spin about a turn earlier than the OCF.
Just said going left, going left.
Right. So the decision process might slow it down even, as opposed to doing OCF and you go idle neutral.
Use right hand. Like I'm going like I'm entering, so I'm gonna choose.
Okay, here we go, with the WC-130, lost power on the number one, left outboard engine during takeoff and attempted to return from landing. So, multi-engine aircraft, opposite rudder for this, right? Use rudder opposite dead engine. Avoid turning into the dead engine, always. Never get below 3-engine minimum controllable airspeed. Pilot broke all 3 rules. Used over 9 degrees of rudder into the dead engine. Aircraft wing did a skid, left wing stalled, stall and yaw, low altitude spin.
That's just Puerto Rico.
And this is.
Puerto Rico guard, take it to a boneyard.
Oh,
Is this an
I remember
H2?
that story.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's one of the only WCs that's crashed.
The only thing I can say about all these aircraft accidents for the guys on board, it probably didn't hurt.
Right.
It's the scary part is going into the ground, the actual impact, it's over with so fast. It's just- So, cause and spin? On yaw. So stall occurs, what kind of stall occurs when yaw is introduced? Asymmetric.
Right, because you're not doing a.
Left and right wing are stalling differently, right?
Could you also say uncoordinated? Could you also say uncoordinated?
Yeah, but that's not the official term.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not coordinated, but just asymmetric. So, asymmetric stall, both wings are stalled, but produce different amounts of lift and drag. First we get opposed stall gyration. Then incipient, and then the full spin. Okay? Opposed stall gyration, incipient spin, stabilize. Now, when we do EP sims, some of our EP sims call for putting you into an OCF situation. What I do typically is I put a student into a screwed up loop where they're starting too slow with not enough power and only do a 2G pull. And generally, when you do that, you generally wind up right here, no airspeed, airplane starting to rotate to the torque. And if they don't go to idle at that point and they wait for it to drop off, they just screwed up the OCF recovery. Okay? As soon as you recognize you're out of control, idle. And then what happens from there, I never know, because it all just depends on just how deep they're into the situation. Sometimes it just flops all over the place, sometimes it just noses over. You have no idea what's gonna happen to the airplane in that situation. That's why you're doing an OCF recovery. Okay? So, yeah, we're required by the syllabus, those are special syllabus requirements to practice OCF from extreme attitudes. So how do we enter an inverted spin? Negative G's. So, pro spin aileron,
Oscillations.
more oscillations. Opposite aileron, obviously less oscillation, right? Forward stick, faster rotation rate, with lower pitch. Half stick, obviously the obvious, higher pitch, slower rate. Pro spin rudder, okay? Higher pitch but faster rate, okay? Less vertical drag, more horizontal drag. And also lower pitch, slower rate.
Half stick and half a stick.
This Svastika?
Left spin?
Left stick and left rotation because of the gyroscopic effect, okay? So. Higher airspeed at the introduction produces what kind of post-stall gyrations?
Larger, stronger, greater
Yeah, a
magnitude.
greater magnitude or stronger, higher intensity of the gyrations. So in order to get into accelerated spin, I have to put what where?
Half stick and hand rudder.
Accelerated is elevated, okay? You have to put the elevator anywhere other than full aft. That's gonna accelerate the rotation. Aggravated is pro spin rudder with stick other or forward to neutral. So that's the really fast one. Okay? Nose is way down because I got pro spin rudder and stick forward.
Yeah, these are not to recover, these are how to cause.
Progressive. I'm holding what too long?
Full up elevator, full out.
Holding full aft elevator with anti-spin rudder.
Gyroscopic precision.
Okay? What's gonna happen with the right? It's gonna be more nose down, right? Okay, we kind of looked at this, that was the initiate, or the post-stall, then the incipient, now we're getting into the stabilized.
Do you execute the, bold face upon entering the steady state in the syllabus?
Well, in the syllabus, you're gonna get into you're gonna do it both ways. I think you're gonna do it early on and you're gonna wait for it to stabilize. Now, if they actually go to the end of this clip, you'll see the rotation rate accelerate slightly just before recovery. Did you notice it? Yeah. Because that's when he's bringing the stick forward to break out a stall, the nose goes down, so rotate goes up just before we actually pop out. So what do we have here? That looks like a lot of fun.
Big long and dark.
That's pretty slow rotation rate.
Yeah. what's going on there.
Recovery.
Okay.
It's still
And the recovery attitude.
Well, we managed to finish right on time.
Can you go back to the?
If you have technical questions,